So you know my name is Walter Day. You know I think you know that I'm with Twin Galaxies. Twin Galaxies is almost 30 years old. We've been keeping track of the scores. We've been creating the rules. What we do is we analyze the games, then we create the rules, and then we enforce the rules, and then we get people's videotaped or live performance and evaluate them, and then we crown the champions. This 5 or 6 step process we've been doing now for almost 30 years, so as to try and crown the champions of the whole world of gaming. And that's what Twin Galaxies has been all about. It's all about this vision that video game players are true competitive participants, true competitive athletes in video game playing, and that they should be honored as pro athletes in this cyber realm. So we've been doing this for 30 years, and I'm honored to have been the founder, but I definitely can't take credit for all the stuff that's going on, because Twin Galaxies is becoming bigger, a lot more people are becoming involved. David Nelson, who's our chief referee, who's in there in the white polo shirt that says Twin Galaxies on it, he's been monitoring scores on the pinball side and on the video game side now for 2 days, and he's just an incredible devotee of this whole thing, and he's doing an amazing job, and Brian and all the guys who organize this have been working closely with him, so I have to give a lot of credit to him because he's keeping the whole thing going while I get to sit here and have fun and talk to you people and stuff like this. So I like to just give a round of applause for David. David's doing all that stuff over there. So what I'm not quite certain what I should talk about today, but I know the basic theme that I want to bring out in the course of talking for the next hour is just an idea of inspiration and vision. Inspiration and vision. There's a lot of people who have vision, and with their vision they've been inspired to do things with it, to make organized video game playing and pinball playing a reality. And the first thing I'd like to do is bring up the 5 organizers of this event, so that at least we'll have this one moment when all of us as a group can focus on them as a group and show them how we love them and appreciate what they've done here, because this is an amazing event, as I'll tell you in a few minutes. So why don't you guys come up here? We got all 5 of you, I think, don't we? Okay, good. There's 5 people who put this together.
Well, there's a lot of people.
Oh, but there's 5 people who acted as the lightning rod that the huge group of people behind them were able to funnel all their work and their inspiration through these 5 people. So this is Matthew Sell, but you can just call him Matthew Sell. And this is Scott Harrell, Brett Fritsch, Brian Cady, and Chris Walsh. These 5 guys are the 5 people that we worked with, Twin Galaxies worked with, to come here, and we're very impressed with what we've seen, because I've been to a lot of events, and this event is well run, but not only is it well run and rich with diversity, it's also inspirational, because these fellows, it became very clear within the first few hours of me being here that this just wasn't going to be a big arcade event or a room full of games. They have the vision, they have the inspiration to try and make this on a level of what Fun Spot on the East Coast has become, a place that is a major destination for people to come and actually go after world record scores to get in the record book. Coming here is the major venue for supporting those players in their endeavor for world records. So they're making it as conducive as possible to come here. They get the games, they get the settings, they brought Twin Galaxies in to add their spin on the thing too, so that this can be a place where world records are being made. And how many are we up to? Maybe it's a dozen or 15 world records already?
We're right now at 15.
15 world records. That's no joke, because the best that Fun Spot's ever done, by the time they did their 10th year, they had 48 new world records in a single event. That was the 2008 event, two Fun Spots ago. So you guys are, almost 1/3 of the way there, but you're still, this is the fledgling event. So there's a tremendous vision that's being just enacted here, that's being started here. And well begun is half done. And this is incredible that you folks have put this together. So everybody's camera should be up right now to take their picture. And everybody should give them a round of applause. I want to get in the picture too. All right. So anyway, this is the source of our inspiration. And it's the source of the vision for this. These 5 guys, because they believed in this. And is there anything you guys want to say about?
Yeah, look
the vision?
over this way. I just wanted to thank. I wanted to thank Brett
and the rest of the people, the Northwest Pinball Show, for inviting us, the Seattle Metro Arcade Collectors, to be a part of this. We really appreciate the hospitality and the assistance and the patience that you've given us. And yeah, tomorrow's going to be a lot of fun getting the stuff out of here, but we'll be here with you guys. And we wanted to thank you, and looks like everyone's loving it, so thank you very much.
Yeah, this is our first show for the video gamers here, going for the competitions and the world records, and this will be small compared to, I think, what's going to happen next year. We're going to get attention from around the world. We're going to have people flying out here to put up a world record, so it's going to be great.
Oh, I don't have much to say, but my voice is really scratchy, but I just want to thank everyone that's coming out here and coming and doing the admissions. And if you guys have any ideas, suggestions, please let anyone here that's working, let them know that, so we can work on that during the fall and winter time to make the show better for next year, because we're booked for 2 more years here, but we might look to move it. So it's come a long way since I started the little pinball show back in Oak Harbor 5 years ago. And it's come to this. So like I said, I'd really like any input anybody has to make the show better. And thank you again for coming out.
That's good. I'd like to just echo Brett's appreciation for everybody who comes out to the show. Seeing everybody having fun, playing the different games, being able to collect world records. For me, the highlight so far of the show is when a little 8-year-old kid set the world record on one of the pinball machines, the look on his face. And by the way, a few adults and his older cousin have tried to beat his score, and nobody's beaten his score yet. So those are the moments for me that really. Yep. So yeah, those are the things that definitely make it worthwhile for all of us. So thank you to all of you for attending and for having fun at the event.
Look to your left, please. Thank you, gentlemen.
I guess the reward for me is to have watched this grow. And Walter was talking about Fun Spot. And I think in the future that's what they will be, a spot compared to this event. So I love the smiles, young and old. Thank you.
Funner spot.
Okay, so thank you very much. So I'm so honored to be here, and this is so much fun to come out here and do this. Usually by the second day after I get over the fatigue, it starts becoming a lot of fun, and I can really enjoy this. I'm fascinated with all the different people who've come here who are going for world records. And that seems to be an incredible it's a growing thing. You know, the games that we're focusing on today, they're not going to be forgotten. They are going to be part of the incredible historical legacy that's going to go on for maybe hundreds of years. And I've said this little soundbite in a dozen interviews. I say to the news people, I say, look, you know, these games are important. These games are so basic. They were so groundbreaking. And they were so incredibly rich in their creativity and the intelligence in the games and the gameplay, the strategy in the games, that they're going to last forever. And it's going to come to pass that someday, 150 years from now, on CNN or in USA Today, there's going to be a news announcement that says, today, George Smith of Cleveland, Ohio, broke the 100-year-old world record on Donkey Kong after practicing for 60 years or something like that. Because, you know, the scores are going to go up higher and higher and higher. And as they go up higher, it gets harder and harder to even add a single further point on those world records. So that's where all this stuff's going to go. It's going to be incredible discipline. It's going to be a tremendous legacy. And all of us are part of that pioneering activity. And that's what we are. We're pioneers because, you know, we think of, 35 years ago is the dawn of video games, you know, 1972 Pong and then 1981 Make Tracks or what have you, all these older games. And we think, those are the old days. You know, 100 years from now, all of this whole historical epic is going to collapse all into one little thing, and they're going to think of 1972 to like 2050 as being the dawn of video games. So even the Xbox is going to be one of those early prehistoric gaming systems from their perspective in the future. So this whole wash of time that we're involved in right now, we're all the pioneers that we're going to be talked about and read about and studied by future generations, because gaming is going to be that big. And they're going to really inspect the history of gaming, and they're going to be looking back to the Northwest Pinball and Northwest Pinball and Game Room Show. Did I say Gumball Show? The Northwest Pinball and Gumball Show, and all these other early events like this, and they're going to be just studying the history of how we were instrumental and leading the whole trend to where it eventually becomes. As part of that whole process, Twin Galaxies for years has been losing things. Where'd it go? Well, I brought us some posters to show, but I don't know if they're right in front of me. Okay, as part of this process, we've been making posters. And the next little bit of inspiration that I want to bring to your attention is the fact that Twin Galaxies now, since 1982, has been making posters that we hand out at events as like commemorative memorabilia that we think will be collected for 100 years. Like, here's the poster for Bill Carlton's high score movie. Are you here, Bill? Where are you, Bill? Did he leave? So anyway, William Carlton was here a while ago making a scene. He was the loud guy at the microphone. Are you there, Bill?
Yes, sir.
I'm holding up your poster. So Bill just saw his poster that we made 3 years ago, just now today, and I'm showing this an example of how we're trying to commemorate through this kind of collectible memorabilia, different landmark things that happen in the course of video game playing history. And this was a poster that we made for Bill when he had did a high score movie premiere in London 3 years ago now. We had shipped it off to his producer who did the movie, but somehow it didn't get in his hands, so it didn't go off to London. So it ended up staying in Billy Mitchell's closet for 3 years. And we finally found it again and dug it out and sent it off so that Bill actually saw it. But this is an example of some of the posters we've done. And of course, some more posters are the ones that they've been making available at the front counter, the front desk. So Twin Galaxies has now produced like 167 posters. And it's, you know, it's because it's how we view things. We view this as a historical process, and we want to commemorate every step of this. So that's part of the reason why we do this. And Billy Mitchell, who you all know from the different movies, he's one of the main supporters of all this. He's commissioned many of these posters as gifts to the hobby, the hot sauce bottles, the posters, and everything like that. So he's been a very strong, tremendous supporter of classic, arcade, and also modern gaming by submitting, supporting us with all these kind of things that we've been giving away as historical relics at all these events. So I want to say we should give him a hand too. So thanks to Billy for all that good work. So, I'm sorry? So there's a vision. Where does all this lead to? How many have been hearing about the Video Game Hall of Fame? Anybody hear about the Video Game Hall of Fame? Well, for some time now, I have been working on developing Twin Galaxies Video Game Hall of Fame. And we were creating medallions. And I don't know who's seen the medallions yet, but right now they're on this big vinyl poster. But eventually, they're going to occupy a whole building. And on top of that, the building may occupy a whole block. And that block may occupy the whole downtown section of a city, because there's a big vision unfolding for video game playing, its history, and its destiny. And it's now in the process of developing its own official Video Game Hall of Fame. So there are two side-by-side organizations developing right now for the Video Game Hall of Fame. Twin Galaxies has its Video Game Hall of Fame that's going to be going from event to event with a traveling display. And what's happening tonight is Twin Galaxies will be doing its first unfolding and unveiling ever of, the different award recipients for the Video Game Hall of Fame. And in that process, it will be officially creating certificates for 17 inductees into the International Video Game Hall of Fame, which is being developed in Ottumwa, Iowa. Has everybody heard of Ottumwa, Iowa? Ottumwa, Iowa is where, let me put this down, where Twin Galaxies originated back in 1981. And at the time that Twin Galaxies was in Ottumwa, we brought together all these video game players who were photographed in this big group photograph for Life magazine. And when that happened, it was the first time that video game players on this championship level were brought together to meet each other. And it was quite a phenomena. And Life magazine made this photograph its centerfold, like a centerfold section in the 1982 Year in Review edition, which came out in January of 1983. And it was a pretty wonderful event. And within 2 months of that event, That's Incredible came to Twin Galaxies, also in Ottumwa, and they did the first, what we now view as history's first official Video Game World Championship. And then the mayor of Ottumwa declared Ottumwa the video game capital of the world. And then the governor of Iowa and Atari and a representative of all the game manufacturers from Washington, D.C. came to Ottumwa and declared Ottumwa the video game capital of the world. All that happened way back there at the beginning, and all those incidences now are considered like seminal, groundbreaking milestones in the history of video game playing. And because of that, Ottumwa recently decided to revisit all that and reclaim its status as the video game capital of the world and actually start working on the Video Game Hall of Fame. And you think, well, it's going to be a building. Well, it's turning out to be more than a building. I've sat in on many, many meetings. And first of all, the Video Game Hall of Fame that's in Ottumwa, Iowa, is not going to be, it's not a Twin Galaxies initiative as much as it's initiative of the city of Ottumwa and also the state of Iowa. The inspiration that came to this, of course, came from all that old experience in Ottumwa from 25 years ago, but it actually is like, it's almost like the vision of Iowa now. It's more than just an old Twin Galaxies milestone. It's now something where the entire city, with the Chamber of Commerce, the Convention and Visitors Bureau, all these developmental commissions, all these state groups, all these politicians from different state organizations are all coming together to try and create what looks like it's going to be a $30 or $40 or $50 million project where they're going to take over this whole area of downtown and have the museum, then maybe have like a Hard Rock Cafe kind of themed restaurant, but based around video game memorabilia instead. And maybe have like one of those kind of dark rides, like maybe Pac-Man World, and you get a little cart and you ride through an inside ride, or virtual reality rides, or maybe Pac-Man Golf, or lots of different things that essentially will make this amusement attraction the world's first video game themed amusement park, turning a whole downtown area part of Ottumwa into this phenomenal thing. And that's what they're working on right now. And I sat on a meeting after meeting after meeting with this big committee of like 35 people representing all areas of Ottumwa's finances and business and civic government and state representatives and people from the colleges and then architects coming from out of state to come in and say, we want to do this and that. So it's a very amazing, impressive process. And I'm so excited because it's going to really put video game playing on the map. Because, you know, Cooperstown is where the Baseball Hall of Fame is. And Springfield, Massachusetts is where the Basketball Hall of Fame is. And Canton, Ohio is where the Canton, Ohio Hall of Fame is. That's a joke. The Canton, Ohio is where the Football Hall of Fame is, and Cleveland has the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. There's also a Cowgirls Hall of Fame. There's also a Spam Hall of Fame. There's also there's a lot of them. There's a Rockabilly's Hall of Fame. I looked up all these halls of fame to try and figure out how we should spin all our promotional stuff or our publicity stuff. And there was a Hall of Fame for everything. Right now they're building a NASCAR Hall of Fame. And it's like a $100 million project. It's super huge and super modern, and it's going to be opened up in Charlotte, North Carolina. And we're looking at that as the model of how we want to develop the Video Game Hall of Fame, using all the most modern technology, the holographic possibilities, all the interactive possibilities, so that when you go in there, you might even be able to walk through some sort of room that gives you a whole history of video game playing around you, maybe on holograms on the walls or in some sort of environment that you're in. So there's a lot of very advanced vision that's being just unfolded in this Ottumwa, Iowa plan. So I'm very impressed. And they actually, you know, it's already set up as a nonprofit organization. So anybody can make a donation anytime they want. In fact, people, I know when they announced that, the first person to call up and make a donation was Billy Mitchell. He seems to always be first on a lot of things. So he made a donation, and he also gave the Donkey Kong machine that he got his world record on. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, so people, if they ever have a game in their closet that they don't need to keep, they can send it off to the Video Game Hall of Fame, because they're accepting everything from the console era, the old console era, to the modern console era, to also the arcade games. So it's quite a great vision. And tonight, we're going to honor some people. We're going to honor 17 inductees who will be inducted into Twin Galaxies Video Game Hall of Fame, and at the same time they become the recommended induction, people for inductee into the International Video Game Hall of Fame, which will be having their own big event on August, I think, 13th in Ottumwa, where what we do tonight will be kind of like rolled into what they do at that time in Ottumwa, where they'll be having a big celebration, which everybody's welcome to come to. It'll be in Ottumwa on August 13th, I believe, on a Thursday night. Now, I've said a lot. Anybody want to ask questions, or? Yeah.
Just for the heck of it, will the old arcade in Ottumwa, will that building be preserved? Is that kind of like
I think what's going to happen is the place that was a Twin Galaxies will be reopened as Twin Galaxies again. It'll be a contest center where people will go in and go for world records. So that's what will happen to the old Twin Galaxies site. And then out in the middle of the street, where everybody had posed for the Life magazine photograph, there'll be some sort of thing built there. Maybe, I don't know if it'll be wax dummies there or what, but it'll be completely a reconstructed scene of those 16 guys perched on top of those 6 video games, and people will go around a roped-off cordoned area and be able to look at it and read about what that whole historical event was with the people posing there. And then over on this side, there'll be some sort of photographic thing set up where you can stand in some sort of thing where it makes it look like you are actually in the original photograph with the other 16 guys in the Life magazine thing. You know how they do those at amusement parks? And you're able to go home with a copy of the photograph of the original Life magazine photograph, but you're in the middle of there beside Billy Mitchell and Steve Sanders or something like that. So they have things like that. So it's pretty funny stuff. Yeah.
I was looking at that poster when I came in, and I spotted Super Mario Galaxy Hall of Famer. I'm wondering, how do you get a high score on Super Mario Galaxy?
Well, I think that particular one might have been a fastest time to completion. You like start a stopwatch or somehow, here's how you do it. You videotape your entire gameplay, and then you send it into the Twin Galaxies referees, a specific one in charge of that platform in that game, and he watches the whole game, and if it's a fastest completion one, he's got a stopwatch out there, and he measures exactly how much time it took for you to, from the very beginning to the very end when you completed the game, and whoever finishes the game in the fastest time is the world record holder. Because the whole concept there behind fastest time to completion is that you're using your intelligence and your memorization and your game playing capabilities to figure out how to strategize the fastest way through the game. And so whoever can figure out the fastest way through the game will in essence be the world champion. So that's what that is. The medallions that are on here, about 170 of them, they're not just for arcade games, they're also for all the different consoles, from the old ones like NES and Atari 2600 right up to the modern Nintendo Wii and Xbox 360 and so forth and so on. So Twin Galaxies recognizes in its Video Game Hall of Fame all the champions for the whole range of video game history. So, yes, back there.
I'll come up, so.
Okay.
So if there's a video game that has like a cheat in it or like a hidden feature, not necessarily a cheat that you had to like enter a code, but like a hidden feature or a mistake, and you can take advantage of that mistake for more points, does it still count towards a world record?
What happens is we evaluate each game on its own merit. So that's why the rules from one game to the next can be completely original, because those rules are based on what we find in that game. Because a lot of the games, the designers of the game didn't quite take everything into consideration and left maybe loopholes or loose ends that allowed the player to kind of like violate the spirit of the game. Like there's many games, or at least numerous games, where you can just stand in a corner and just shoot the enemy all day, so that it really doesn't become a challenge anymore. It just becomes how long you can stay awake or how long your finger's going to last before it's so worn out you can't do this anymore. So essentially, when that kind of thing pops up in a game, we actually expressly write that as a rule in our rules, and each game on our online database has the rules you have to follow. And it'll say, you cannot do this, you cannot do what's called point leeching, you can't do this particular stunt because the stunt is not fair. There's many different kinds of games where there's some bug that if you do this certain thing, You'll stop the enemy from being able to shoot back or fight back. We ban all those kind of tactics because they're not fair, because they ruin the spirit of the game, and the game is no longer challenging
Sure.
you. Yeah.
If the rule isn't written, and so the person's taking advantage of an unwritten rule or something that hasn't been determined as a bug, does that still count towards a
Well,
world record?
what would happen is, let's say that you discovered something and you sent the score in. Well, first of all, the referee would red flag it immediately. But if for some reason the referee didn't red flag it immediately, what might happen is your number one crosstown rival would say, look, I can only get 20,000 points. This guy got 40,000 points, and I know the only way that he could do that is if he's doing this stunt. I want you to look at the stunt and make a call on it, because I think this stunt is not allowable, and that apparently you must have allowed it for him to be able to get his 40,000 points. So we look at that and find out that sure enough you have been doing this stunt, and now that our attention is drawn to it, we realize that it does violate the spirit of the game and that we won't allow this anymore. So we would recall your score and ask for you to re-game and play it without that stunt, so that your game score at that point in time will be based on your skill set and not on you taking advantage of some weakness in the programming of the game that allowed you to point leech at that point. So that comes up.
And who makes those determinations as
Well,
far
we have
as...
a board of referees. We have like 30, 40 referees. And we have a chief referee who's here, David Nelson, who's over there monitoring scores. And we have a lot of people who have, between all of them, they have amazing amount of information. The amount of information I had and knew back when I was just the only referee decades ago is so small compared to what any one of them know now. They're all geniuses, like compared to what I was back when I was the only referee, because they have so much experience now, and there's so much knowledge available to them, and all this stuff is in our database. So it's so rich with different details and so many different games. I think we cover like about 35,000 different games or game tracks. Now think about that, 35,000, like what are we thinking, you know? We should be out having maybe normal lives or something, but here we are, going and following 35,000 games. But we think there's about 100,000 games that we could be following, because there's those many games out there now, because this industry is spreading so fast and getting so big. In fact, some people say that it may be like a $50 billion industry by the time 2010 is over. Monstrously big. So many games coming out every year. And I fondly refer to Twin Galaxies as the elephant's graveyard of video games. And that's because every time a game comes out, it has a 3-month marketing cycle, generally. I mean, some people have been in the video game industry for a long time. Would you say that's right, Perry? 3-month marketing cycle? About that right? So it takes maybe 3 years to make a game, maybe $3 million to make a game, then they get to sell it, actively for 3 months or something.
Depending on the game, in some games
Yeah.
have longer shelf life.
Okay, yeah. But generally that could be the rule of scale for maybe lots of games. But during those 3 months, the video game manufacturers are completely behind the game. But as soon as it stops selling and they got some new, latest, greatest thing, they stop paying attention to those old games, and they don't really support them that much. And that's where it kind of like falls into Twin Galaxies' domain. Twin Galaxies supports all games except for a few ones that we don't think are worth scoring properly. And we essentially are going to support 100,000 games as time goes on. So I think of us as the elephant's graveyard of video games, because everybody else, they seem to abandon their games and just not put any attention on them anymore. And only Twin Galaxies seems to be actively supporting and encouraging people to play those games and to submit their scores. So our activities are going bigger and bigger and bigger. We always need more and more referees, and more people being involved, and more great events like this event. Yes?
How long do you archive your videotape submissions for, and do you have to convert them from videotape to new formats for long-term storage?
We're at that point exactly right now. I actually have to go and retrieve a big archives of videotapes that are one of our referees' places, because we have to start, we're going to give a whole bunch of our archives to the Video Game Hall of Fame in Ottumwa. We've offered them to them, they've accepted them. And that one of the things we're going to try and arrange is for those videotape gameplay to be put on some sort of new format, so that when people come into the Hall of Fame Museum, They can go and push a button on the wall or however it'll be set up, and they can watch the gameplay actually be done there on the wall or there on some sort of kiosk screen or something, where they can watch the old gameplay be played out, the world records be played out right before their very eyes. So we can see our archives becoming publicly available in this Hall of Fame. See, we generally haven't been making like our archives available to fellow players, because if player A has got 10,000 points and player B figures out a new strategy, player B spent 1,000,000 quarters to get that strategy learned, and he doesn't want player A to see it, so we've always had to be supportive of players who want their strategies to be kept secret. So we don't publicly really post a lot of the different gameplay unless the players say it's okay. But we've had a lot of players say, please do not let my rivals see this, because it took me forever to learn how to do this, and if they see what I'm doing, then they'll just break my record. But if they don't know what I'm doing, then they'll never be able to figure it out, and I'll always be the world champion. So we've kind of like had that situation many times, so we haven't really made our archives available to the public.
I have a question about, this is in regards to console world records, and I know that there's many like third-party proprietary controllers, and my question was just, is there a separate category for people who break a high score record on a console using like a third-party controller, or is there different categories if, say, someone plays, for example, like Robotron on the 5200 with the dual stick versus the single stick, and how does Twin Galaxies categorize something like that for like the world record?
Well, the referees could actually answer that better than I would, because they're in the front lines of knowing many, many instances that I wouldn't be familiar with, because I don't really do any of the tapes or evaluations anymore because I have so many other things to do. But essentially, controllers are usually not the issue if they are just concerned with the actual control of the game. But if they are things that give you superhuman powers, like the ability to push a button faster, like maybe game genies, or like anybody see Chasing Ghosts, how they took out the electric knife and started using it on track and field, so going 4 times as fast as a human finger could go. Those are things that would be essentially controllers that are giving you superhuman powers, and that would be a violation of the rules, and that's what we would try and stop. And how we would uncover that is that someone would say, no one can do this score because no one can push a button that fast. So someone else would, if they saw the score that was being attained by using some sort of cheating device like a Game Genie or Game Shark or something that gave them specially enhanced capabilities, some other player would call them on the carpet and say, he can't do this unless he's using a Game Shark. And so that's how we would unmask that. But yes, but as far as whether or not you're playing an NES with some sort of big arcade board, that's usually okay, because a lot of the earlier controllers were kind of hard to play anyway, so we can understand people using things like that. But we have to take it each situation at a time. Yes?
That was kind of goes with my question, because I was going to ask about, say, now on consoles they have collection discs.
Mm-hmm.
They have old arcade games in there. Are there different categories if you get high scores, say on like Pac-Man on the 360 versus Pac-Man in the arcade machine? Just because sometimes they play either slightly different, you're not supposed to be the same program.
Oh, well, when you have, for instance, like suppose you're playing suppose you're playing on the Xbox, and you're playing like a Williams Classic Collection or something like that, and you're playing Defender. We'd lump all the scores together as an Xbox Williams Classic Collection Defender, and we don't merge those, for instance, with Defender on the arcade. So in other words, we have 20 different Defender scores. We have them on Sega Genesis, we have them on Sega Saturn, we have them on Xbox Williams Collection Defender, we have them on the arcade, we have them on MAME. So it's kind of a nightmare, but we keep all the platforms segregated from each other because there are nuances that are different. And so instead of making it muddy by trying to just not reconcile it all, we just keep them separated. So it's extra work, but we're satisfied with it because there's nuance changes when things get ported from platform to platform, from system to system. So we keep them separated. Yeah, how about there?
Are you strictly interested in global all-time records, or do you have do you also look at direct competition or short-term competition? competition, or is it just the all-time best?
Okay, well, there's a few things there. Well, first of all, Twin Galaxies is not just about the highest score. I think that if you go into our database and look up Twilight Zone pinball, I think we have the top 900 scores, something like that. So I think we have it up there 950th place or something like that on Twilight Zone. And we don't have this attitude, hey, let's dump all these, we're only interested in the 10 highest scores, even though we've had many people over the years saying, you should be dumping all this and just be focusing on the top 10 scores. No, we are the historical archives for the whole age of gaming. We are the historical archives for the whole age of gaming. Our oldest score in our database is from 1935. Oldest score, and that's from novelty games, from contests that were done in Chicago way back in 1935 at the AMOA, the Amusement Operators Association event that they used to have, that they still have. And the oldest pinball I think we have is from like 1977 scores or 76. And then I think the oldest video game scores we have are some 77 or 78. And we don't dump these because we do try to monitor the whole range of the history of gaming so that when our archives is inherited by future generations, they will have the whole thing intact and they will know the historical trajectory of the sport, the historical progression of the sport. Do you know what the Elias Sports Bureau is? Well, they put into their database all the results of all the baseball games. Maybe they do it for football too, but all the baseball games all the way back to I think the 1860s, and then they could analyze all those results in their database so they could find out things like this is the 17th time that someone at 2 o'clock in the afternoon threw a no-hitter or something on a Thursday afternoon. They have all these details in such detail that they can come up with almost any profile on their data that they imagine. So we're trying to have as much data as possible. It will pass on to future generations. And so we hold on to our data. So that's one thing. The other thing is that you were talking about events. Now suppose someone gets a high score at this event, but then someone else breaks their world record. We still maintain the earlier record that didn't get, that's no longer the world record. And of course the new world record is the new world record. And now suppose you got a high score, and then later you get another high score at another event. In our database we'll only publish your highest score, but in our database we will still have your lesser scores. So maybe you broke the world record in Twilight Zone pinball 5 times. In our database it'll all still be there for us to know that, but it will only publish in our database for the public to read your highest score. Now does this sort of answer your question?
Somewhat. I was also asking more about short-term things like, I will never beat Billy Mitchell's high score, but say today he and I played games back and forth and I beat him in that single event.
No, we haven't been doing that. There'll be a lot of extra stuff to keep track of. But who knows what the future has in store, because we're about to bring out pretty soon a new website that will be able to crunch all our data in the same way that all the sports websites are doing, like the NFL sports site or the NBA sports site or the NHL or the Major League Baseball. So there'll be a lot of ways that our data would be able to be statistically published to the front page, so you'll be able to search it in many different ways and see who the champions are by city or by state or by time, like this year, or this week or today, or who's the champion in Nintendo Wii, or who's the champion in a particular game. So all these possibilities are going to be available through our new website. Still just a matter of time, but that's what we're working on. Yeah.
Have you seen a big increase in submissions? Have you seen a big increase in submissions since documentaries like King of Kong and made Twin Galaxies a little bit more out in the public, a little bit more in the public eye?
Oh yeah, Twin Galaxies has become world famous because of the movies.
Yeah.
So Twin Galaxies is in Chasing Ghosts, King of Kong, movie called Frag, another movie that's being finished that was done on the Nibbler world record, and then a lot of other things that are happening too. Just a tremendous amount of attention has been directed at Twin Galaxies. I think Twin Galaxies would have lasted into the future doing its work because it does its work so well, but it definitely has gotten a tremendous boost by all the media attention that's directed at us from from King of Kong and Chasing Ghosts and Frag and a bunch of other things too. They're going to make allegedly a remake of King of Kong. Who knows if that'll ever happen? And I know that Tom Cruise got excited about being Billy Mitchell and even approached them and said, "This is for real." Tom Cruise wants to be Billy Mitchell, according to my understanding. And this is also published different places on the internet. So he has made some sort of effort to try and make this happen, and I don't know how they're working that out. But my understanding is that it kind of spooked them when Tom Cruise wanted to get involved because this is my estimation. I don't know if I'm completely right, because Tom has such a big entourage and makes such big waves wherever he goes, and I think it probably would have become less fun for the people who would have been involved, because he would essentially have taken over the whole project. And I think they felt some sort of sense that they wanted to see the project through themselves. But that's just my estimation. I'm not saying something I know for sure. Yeah.
Now, what is the world record for time-wise on a coin-op video game, as far as duration?
Okay, that is a good question. God, I wish I knew the answer too. No, actually, on a coin-op game. Okay, so you're talking about what has been verified as a true marathon record. Stand up, William.
So what is it, Bill?
The true verifiable, and I say verifiable with a capital V, world records that we know are true, are done by this man here. Two of them, both in the 40-hour range, right?
Both over 24 hours, both captured on videotape.
Okay.
First player to ever do that on 2 classic titles, and you know both these titles, Asteroids and Missile Command.
Yeah, so here's the thing. Let me tell you a little bit about marathoning. See, you got to realize the word verified is the key word there. Now, here's what Twin Galaxies was all about years ago. When Twin Galaxies came into existence, within days within a week or so, we're getting called by the media. We were getting called by the media almost every day because they were saying, there's a kid here in Raleigh, North Carolina. He's going for some score on Robotron, some score on Defender, Stargate, Asteroids. There's like 15 titles back then that could be marathoned. And they wanted to know, is this the world record? And we had a list growing. Yeah, this is the world record, this isn't the world record, and we were, keeping them going. And we get results through the mail from these arcades and saying this guy lasted 37 and a half hours and he got these many points. At that time, we were very trusting because it didn't quite dawn on me. I mean, I don't know what I was thinking then, but it didn't dawn on me that these might not be completely accurate or true. So all those old records, who knows how accurate they were, or how true they were, or whether or not the person was taking drugs, or whether or not the person took a nap and then started again and just submitted the scores saying that they did do all this stuff. So there's a lot of big claims, even up to 70, 80 hours, that we have no idea how reliable they are. So we have this modern era where people have to take like a drug test. They have to have the whole thing videotaped with a date time stamp on their videotape. William has pioneered the whole thing where he had to go through the drug test. He had to have the videotape date time stamp on the whole thing. So he has been our working example of modern era verifiable marathons. Ladies and gentlemen, William Carlton.
Just so you know, I didn't stop the tape when I put at the urinalysis. I kept the tape going, brought it right over to where I was at. I let him see it all.
Yeah, we have it. It's great. We're going to sell that online. William's urinalysis tape.
It's already out on YouTube.
So essentially, the old days were on a wing and a prayer, and it was almost like a good faith system, and who knows how verifiable the old records are. 67 and a half hours were done by James Vallant while I was there, and we do accept that as the longest running old era marathon submission, so 67 and a half hours. It's possible people can do more, except that we want to do them under tightly, closely scrutinized conditions, and that's how we're moving forward into the future. And also, because we don't want to be responsible for people having heart attacks or having weird health failures, we actually don't encourage marathons because they could be potentially dangerous. They could cause stuff to happen to your physiology that just doesn't revert back to normal after the marathon is over. So it's kind of like a dangerous thing a person's taking on when they're doing a marathon because it really burns on the nervous system. Okay, who's next? These are good questions. Yeah.
these classic machines, like the companies and the individuals are still around, like Nintendo of America that converted the old radar scopes to the Donkey Kong is down the road here in Redmond. Sega, Namco, Capcom, a lot of these companies are still around, and Toru Iwatani, who created the original Pac-Man, is alive and well, and he comes to Game Developers Conference. He worked on Pac-Man Championship Edition. Are you planning to involve the original creators of these games, either the companies or the individuals, as guests or sponsors for Twin Galaxies in the future?
At the Video Game Hall of Fame, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the Video Game Hall of Fame is going to have to be completely integrated with all those people, their companies, and their legacies. So the Hall of Fame is not just going to be not just about the players, even though that's a significant part of it, but it is going to be about the games and their developers and about the company histories and about the arcade era. There's a man up in Chicago who donated all the historical memorabilia from his arcade from all the early 80s. His name's Tom Blankley, and he had the arcade named Friar Tuck's in Calumet City, a suburb of Chicago. So we have like his whole collection of historical stuff that really embodies the arcade era. So we have like a great arcade collection of stuff, from the photographs, the brochures, all the different things. So that's one example. We might have token collections hanging on the wall. We might have postcard collections, all sorts of things about arcades. All sorts of archival collections of company correspondence and history from different companies that have closed down. Lots of things are going to be pursued by us to be in this museum, because this museum, it's going to be a Hall of Fame like the players that we're going to honor. It's going to be a contest center for people to come and do things year-round like they're going to be doing here every year. It's going to be an archives where things will be archived, where there'll actually be a storage facilities. Like Twin Galaxies is donating its whole magazine collection, which is about 1,000 or more magazines dating back to 1981. It'll have an archives, it'll have a museum, it'll have a Hall of Fame, and then it'll have all the amusement stuff too. So it's a big bunch of stuff that the museum will be supporting and examining and preserving, including all the stuff that you just mentioned. Yeah, yes?
This is a little bit off topic.
I'm off topic.
Where would it be possible for us to find more about your music life and support you in this music endeavor that...
Now you're getting personal. So, who knows about my music? Okay. So back in 1985, I had this beautiful girlfriend who called me up one day and said, "Walter, I've secretly been seeing one of your close friends. And I guess I just have to leave you because I've fallen in love with him." And so that was the end of our relationship that night. And it was a very funny experience, because that heartbreak led to me suddenly hearing music play right here. I don't know if people have experiences in their life that they can relate to this, but I started hearing music. Like I was listening to a record playing right here, and it's songs and lyrics and music just coming up. It was like listening to the radio, but I was hearing original songs that I couldn't find in existence anyplace outside. So I didn't have any pretense about becoming a musician or becoming a performer or becoming maybe I'm a performer, but no pretense about becoming a musician or singing in public or anything like that. So this took me by surprise. But it was so non-stop, gripping me so much, that I just started singing the song into a recorder and writing it down. And by the time it stopped happening, there were 138 songs that I had written down, stuff like that. And a lot of them had melodies that people liked, and a lot of them had interesting themes that people liked. So I thought, well, maybe I'm supposed to be doing this. Maybe this is a message from God. I'm also supposed to try out and go do this. So this is like a personal thing that's completely out of the framework of Twin Galaxies that I really want to see done. And that I have all the equipment set up now to do it. And the only reason I'm not doing it every day is because I'm trying to get, as I've said in these movies, I'm trying to get closure on Twin Galaxies. It's just like a father having a child. You send them off to college, and I want to make sure they're okay. I'm trying to pass Twin Galaxies off to the next generation of people in an okay condition, so that it can go on and can continue to serve the public in the way that you see we want it to serve the public, be the official infrastructure for organized competitive gaming going on into the future. So none of my songs are really done, but I'm going to start working on them again soon, because I've just got to do it, because that's one of my personal goals. How big of a check can you write? Okay. I'm only kidding, of course. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But I'm very honored. If anybody's heard my music and they think they like it, I'm absolutely flattered and flabbergasted too. Because for me, it's all in my head. I'm thinking, these are my songs, and I don't have any take on whether they're good or bad. They're just me. They're just what's happening to me. And so it's something I'm trying to deal with and reconcile. And it was so gripping that I can't begin to describe how strong the inflamed desire is to go out and do my music. So, but I'm honored you brought it up. Thank you very much. Yeah, Chris.
Do you have any on CD?
No, but I've been asked more and more. I don't know what it is, but there's some sort of trend where more and more people are saying, I want to buy your music on CD. So maybe that's a sign from the forces of nature. I'm supposed to go out and do this next.
And iTunes, new singles on
Yeah, I understand. I have a friend who does all that stuff. Yeah.
Sorry, my voice. So most people know that you collected business cards and newspapers, and obviously you love collecting things just in general, records and world records. And so what got you into collecting, on a personal level, and what was like the first thing that you ever collected?
Oh, this is fun question, thank you. But do we have enough time? Where are we at now?
We've got 15 left.
15 minutes? Okay, so before I answer that, are there any pressing, important Twin Galaxies questions? Because that's going a little bit out of Twin Galaxies, but I can answer. I have answers for all that, of course. And by the way, so tonight at 8 o'clock, we're going to do the induction ceremony where 17 highly honored people are going to be honored in Twin Galaxies Video Game Hall of Fame as we do our inaugural ceremonies, and as also we inaugurate the International Video Game Hall of Fame by recommending and inducting 17 people into their Hall of Fame, and they'll be taking our 17 recommendations and doing a big event of their own too a little bit later in August. So we're so honored to start the whole ball rolling right here at the Northwest Pinball and Gumball Show. I'm sorry, I just had to say it again. The Northwest Pinball and Game Room Show. So there's one last thing I'd like to do before I answer that question. Is Chris, could you stand up here for a second? And Paul, could you stand up here for a second? Is Mark Alberger here? I just wanted you guys to meet the superstars. I wanted you guys to just see who some of the world record holders are that are here that we're honoring. Ken, could you come up here for a second? Maybe we could do a group photograph. Perry, could you come up here? Is Perry still here? Anyway, Ken here is the Dig Dug world record holder. Chris Mansfield is the Kicker world record holder, and Paul Dean is the Spy Hunter and Frenzy world record holder. Did I miss anything? And there are more people who had been here, but they got bored by my talk and they left.
One more, number one.
Oh yeah, I'm Brian Cade. I'm sorry, Brian. Brian is the Tempest world record on the hardest difficulty settings that Twin Galaxies require. So this is a very significant accomplishment. Mr. Good, you like it? Okay. Well, I guess that's all. I don't see anybody else. I thought there would be more.
Well, a lot of them are going for world records as we speak.
That's why Dave Nelson is so busy at the moment.
That's what. Oh, William Carlson. William, get up here.
I don't have a number one.
William Special, get up here. See, William was complex for me because he didn't quite have a world record right now, but the accomplishments of what he did on his 2 marathons were so over the top and so more extreme than what anybody else really has gone through in recent times, except Paul did his Frenzy marathon and did a Spy Hunter one. So you two guys have done 2 marathons. You both done 2 marathons. And yours were separated by 20 years, but his were separated by 20 days. And so very profound. So I take their picture. And that's what this whole vision's all about. This is all about honoring people. And that's what Twin Galaxies was always about. Just honoring Twin Galaxies, uplifting the people, honoring them, and just bringing them just honoring them for the excellence that they've always done. You know, there's so much controversy going on now in the video game industry amongst all the players, and so many people arguing about things. But please just cut through all that and realize that these are the guys that this is all about. Just honoring them for their excellence and uplifting them. And that's what it's all about. It's as simple as that. Nothing else. Just honoring them and uplifting them. So you guys are great. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so what was the question?
Yeah, what was the first thing that you ever collected?
Oh my God.
Like, why do you like collecting so much?
Well, first of all, I don't have any collections anymore. The only thing that you might call a collection is the high score thing with Twin Galaxies. But I used to collect old newspapers because I was going to become a history teacher. That's what I was going to do. I was going to become a history teacher, and I was going to use old newspapers in this classroom as actual teaching aids. So back when I was in high school, this was my plan. I used to go around to old bookstores in Boston where I grew up, and I'd find newspapers from 1810 or 1790 or, you know, we're talking about real old newspapers. Sometimes people think old newspapers are, oh, you got something with the Kennedy assassination or something like that. No, I'm talking about newspapers so old that my oldest newspaper when I was doing this was from the year 1590. It was from Puyallup. And it was a very, very old newspaper. It was actually from Germany. It wasn't from Puyallup. It was from Germany. Puyallup hadn't started up yet. Most people don't realize that, though. So I was an old newspaper researcher, and I actually got college credit for doing this research, and I was going to teach with using newspapers in the classroom. Then I got sidetracked. I went to Haight-Ashbury and became a hippie for a while. And if you know what Haight-Ashbury is, that's a very disturbing experience, and sometimes it's hard to pull out of it. But I eventually went on to go back to college, and then I became a teacher of transcendental meditation. Anybody here know what TM is? Well, TM is a big deal now. You think meditation is some strange thing. Meditation, this particular meditation that I became involved in is actually very profound. And you're seeing it in the news all the time because they're finding out that it helps students who have attention deficit disorder. It affects IQ. They're having the military do it. Entire foreign governments are trying to get all their soldiers and their school children to do it because you close your eyes and you do this technique and it causes such deep rest in the nervous system. Stress goes out and it causes changes in the way the hemispheres of the brain work together that actually result in more creativity, more intelligence, your energy level increases, and stress goes out of the body so that your health stays younger and more vibrant longer. And that's just a few things, the tip of the iceberg. So I don't need to elaborate on it. Just watch the news. They're talking about this all the time because it's such a big deal, because it's changing people's health when they sit down and do TM a couple times a day. So I'm not here to proselytize about that, but I just wanted to tell you that was part of my historical progression, that I went out and learned that, and that changed my life. And as soon as I started doing TM, all these creative ideas came for doing like Twin Galaxies. And so I started Twin Galaxies, and every single thing that I did and the trajectory of Twin Galaxies would happen after they sit down and meditate. So I've talked about this in many interviews recently. I used to be shy about it before because I thought they're going to think Walter's a nut because he practices meditation. But there are so many important people now who are coming out of the woodwork saying, hey, all my creative inspiration's coming because I sit down and do meditation, and it clears my head and just revs up my energy so much that it's easier to create things and just think things out and organize things and just make things leap out of the mental state actually and manifest into the physical realm because you just have more energy. So I'm pretty impressed, and that's why I'm here telling you about that, because that's part of my story. So I was sitting in meditation one day and I thought, gee, you know, I looked at this book one day and I saw all these pictures of high school yearbook photos, and I thought, my God, wouldn't it be interesting if people were able to get their hands on original high school yearbook photos? I don't know if you people have seen some of the news stories on me, but I used to also go out in the news as called the yearbook detective. And what it was I'd go out and find people's high school yearbooks that had famous people in them and get those yearbooks, and I was going to make a museum down in Orlando, Florida, that was all about inspiring kids to shoot for the highest goals possible, showing how these famous people were just like you and I in high school, just another person in the classroom in the high school yearbook, but they went on to do great things and important things, and because they believed in themselves and they shot for the highest goals and they really performed well and they achieved. And I was going to use high school yearbooks to actually bring this out. And so I managed to go and get hundreds of different celebrities in their high school yearbooks and tried to open it up as a museum in Orlando. But it was happening during a time that the finances were bad for America, which seems to go on in cycles, and so it didn't happen. But it was kind of like one of those fun experiences that I went through that also came up when I was meditating, the idea for it. And so I was famous in the news as the yearbook collector who had all these high school yearbooks. And I was on like PM Magazine and Gary Collins's Hour Magazine and CBS This Morning, showing high school yearbooks with Hulk Hogan and Johnny Carson and Mickey Mantle and, you know, all sorts of famous people like that. I had a couple hundred people. Some of them were very interesting too. So that was another one of those things I did in the realm of collecting. But I don't have any of those collections anymore. I'm mainly focused on Twin Galaxies and letting Twin Galaxies collect all these statistics. But there is some sort of similar thing there in that it's a collection of data in the same way collecting things like stamps or coins might be considered a collection of data. So, yeah, but it's an interesting question no one's ever really asked. Yeah, Matthew.
This is just for curiosity's sake. What were the first and last games that you bought for Twin Galaxy while it was an arcade?
Oh, Twin Galaxies started on November 10th, 1981 with 22 games. 22 games. It was Pac-Man, Donkey Kong, Centipede, Tempest, and Frogger, Gorf Galaxian, Make Tracks, Red Baron, and Wizard of War, Sprint and Drag Race, and Space Fury, and Super Cobra and Turtles, and Kicks, you know, Q-I-X, Kicks, and Star Castle and Lunar Lander, and Gorfin Galaxian, I said that. So it was 22 games. And I think the last game we got there before Twin Galaxies closed down, and the reason Twin Galaxies closed down was because our distributor, or our service provider who brought us our games, our operator who brought us our games, we had them there on lease, like a lot of arcades did. He got his games repossessed on him, and a truck suddenly pulled up to our doors and took away his games from our arcade, so suddenly our whole arcade was empty. And everybody was going out of business at that time. It was March of '84. So we were unable to get replacement games. So it was just time to close the doors and not try and run an arcade and just be a scoreboard. Just be a scoreboard that operated through the mail, through promotions, and over the telephone. But the last game would have been in March of '84. And it might have been Crossbow by Exidy. But we never really bought games. We were having all our games on lease, except that towards the very end, we were getting a lot of games donated, being loaned to us. Like Williams loaned us 10 games that we had there for almost a whole year, free of charge. Gave us 2 Jousts, 2 Robotrons, 2 Moon Patrols, 2 Motor Race USAs, and 2 Bubbles. And then Rockola loaned us an Eyes and a Nibbler for about a year and a half. And then Sega loaned us for way over a year a Buck Rogers, a Star Trek, a Congo Bongo, and a Championship Baseball. So we had like a bunch of games that were loaned to us free. Okay.
Quick question. Sorry. So I know I'm asking all these questions, but it might be important. How does Twin Galaxies stay in, I guess it's not really a business, it's an organization, but I'm sure there's a lot of volunteering, but do you guys take donations? How do you guys do travel to events and stuff like that?
Oh, well, Twin Galaxies is in the process of going through major revamping so that it has a serious level of professional management now. And in that light, they're beginning to develop all sorts of ways for it to make money and support itself and pay its own bills and pay for a higher level of people being involved in managing it and doing the different functions and training the referees to be even far more trained and far more knowledgeable so that it's a professional organization, a professional brotherhood of referees And so all this stuff is beginning to be developed right now. For years, it was just me surrounded by a bunch of devotees, and we're doing it completely at our own expense as a labor of love. And that went on for decades and decades. I personally still do it as a labor of love, but essentially, because Twin Galaxies is now going for a bigger vision, it has to have a bigger infrastructure, and whether we like it or not, that does take money. So therefore, it's being completely envisioned as a whole new level of business organization. So we have new management, and we have lots of people coming on board, better training things. It's just uplifting itself in every possible way, which will involve, money coming in and all sorts of different things we're going to develop to sell or something like that, and for people getting fees when they go places. So it's a big process and a big change. And I guess I'm out of time. Or should we do one more question? Are we all set? Okay.